Hello everybody, it is Mike Levin on Tuesday, February 16th, 2021. And it occurred to me that I do want to update my to-do list, but better make it a repo, because if I start going down here and taking my to-dos and dones and moving them around, they're no longer a record of what happened on that day, Wednesday, February 10th. And it's nice to have that edit by edit history. And to do that, I really want Git installed. But I actually have Git installed, or if I don't, I now can get it with just a apt-get vim, which I'll show you in a moment, because I don't need the Windows version of Git now, or even Vim, because it's already installed over on the Linux side. And as I showed you on a previous video, because they share the same file system now, it's really easy to seamlessly jump back and forth and use whichever tool is stronger on whichever side. But I know people are waiting to get that Linux graphics subsystem video so I can show you Linux desktop software on Windows. I also know that the YouTube algorithm will reward me if I do that. But do I care? Am I like other YouTubers? Am I one of the hyperbolic, bombastic, and boorishly applying the principles of, in fact, my field of search engine optimization, SEO, to the YouTube space for views? The answer is no. No, I am not. Why? Because I really make my money on my day job and I don't need this YouTube income. This is more for me to think through my issues just the way I do in my daily journal as it is for you folks. So y'all can wait before I start making those googly X eyes at you again. I think this will be the third video I've done on it, but this time I'll nail it so that you can follow along. I know there's questions about how you target the graphics to the desktop with viewports and stuff. So for this video, I'm going to do what I really want to do, which is back up this journal, making a new Git repo. It's not going to be my old journal repo. I'm going to show you how to make a new Git repo and finally cover in that stack I always tell you about is the important obsolescence proofing stack of your personal career and know-how is Linux, Python, Vim, and Git. And I have spent a fair amount of time talking about Linux, Python, and Vim in my videos. Poor little Git, which is your key to, moving your information around, keeping it safe, deploying it, collaborating with others. So many things has taken the back seat to these other things. So I'm going to just make this journal a new Git repo. Let's just go do that now. And I'll do the GitHub part of it later because of the complexity of keys and the identity of your machine and having to use the SSH Keygen utility. That'll be a video on its own, and how to eliminate the need for passwords in GitHub when you're, committing your changes to your repos. And I will do instead what I really want to do, which is the final bit of customization here to the Windows Terminal preview version that I have installed, which is not doing everything the way I like. First, it's not opening full screen. Second, it doesn't have the right font size set. Third, it's defaulting to PowerShell. I forgot one. Set font size. Okay, that's unacceptable. 2, 3, and 4. Okay. And default, yeah, well, there. I showed you what my plan is. So normally, this was really interesting because there used to be this VS Code trap where the moment you go to settings, it would start the VS Code process if it were anywhere on your machine already pre-installed, or I think the installer used to give it to you. but I might be wrong on that account. Don't hold me to that. But any way you look at it, if you don't at this point choose something from out of the Microsoft Store or more apps on your machine, you don't even know where this file is, because it's a JSON file that's sitting on your drive that does this, and I'd like to edit it in Vim on Linux. So let's do a couple of things here. I'm going to exit out of that, and this is an exciting adventure because I have not really done this before, at least not in the way I'm doing it now. So I'm bringing up into Ubuntu, right? So there it is. That was a full Linux boot. You can sort of silence this stuff up here once you want to. 12 updates can be installed immediately. They're telling you about, it's time to run sudo apt-get update and upgrade to get to the latest. It's the, compromise, because they're not going to do auto install on here, keeping your Ubuntu up to date the way they do on the Windows side if you opt into it. Here's my hello world, which I put in there from editing a file called bash login. You can do an ls-la to see everything that's there. It is my Linux home directory. No, it's my Windows home directory, which is also where it dumps you as your Linux home directory. Although that is not your true home directory, dropping you there is, I believe, a convenience that Windows is doing. So if I first I can do Control plus, make it readable. I can do CLS, clear. Okay, got to get all my commands straight, living in different terminal environments. So here, if we do cd // which is the Unix/Linux syntax for home directory, it'll bring you to another place. See how it wipes away that whole path? So this is your Windows home directory, and this is your Unix home directory. And you're like, well, it wiped out the path. How do I know what the path is? You can type in pwd, and it will show you /home/Ubuntu. So as an introduction to Unix/Linux commands, if you wanted to get there, you could cd for current directory /home. You could go first to home if you wanted to, do an ls there, and see that there's only the one directory called Ubuntu. That's what I made my username on this system. cd Ubuntu, do an ls there, and once again, it's empty because it's your Linux home directory, which really doesn't have anything in it, at least not visible. If you do an ls-la list all, you can see the bash profile that I had created yesterday. And if we take a look at that, vim bash profile, you can see my hello world and the first alias I put in there, which is Explorer, the Explorer exe, and the fact that exes work in an ELF executable environment is surprising, but whatever. Microsoft magic fairy dust that makes it all work, and it's doing it on the current directory. That dot means the current directory. So that means if I were to type open here, it would open that location on the Windows side. This is Windows Explorer. I'm in dark or night mode, so I know it doesn't necessarily look like it to all of you. But now if I cd'd back to this other location, and I opened that, you would just see my Windows home location, right? My more traditional Windows home location, which you can always click in there and see that same path, see users and username. Okay, so that's a little bit of background for what we're about to do with finding a magic location where this profile .json or settings.json is hidden. And that's what this stuff is about. We start out with this much of the path in one of those Explorer windows. And that drops us in where all this weird stuff is. It's like where your local files are for your program that it's trying to hide from you. It's trying to hide the local files. So one in here should be Windows Terminal. Now, bear with me because the naming conventions can be different, and then there's also the sort order. So I'm going to double check what the naming convention is. It's going to be Windows Terminal and then all its stuff. So in this location under Packages, Windows, Microsoft Windows, Terminal, there it is. And in here, you're always going to have a local state. So your local state is your local state, and there's settings.json. So I have this path here. Now it is in fact a Windows path, and that's kind of an issue with what I'm about to do. And you can see it's settings.json. So, I mean, it's less than an ideal solution, right? But you can paste it in here, and then you can look at the path convention here. Mount C users to your personal directory. So that means this translates into mnt C users, and then we just reverse our slashes, and this should be something that I could use in a Vim command to load that file off of the hard drive. It's ridiculous, but this can be converted into a valid path for the Linux side. And I think there's a leading slash. That kind of stuff is important. Control C. And so now I should be able to go Vim and paste that in. And there is my settings file for terminal. And it should be real time, meaning edits I make here should affect what I'm actually looking at. Set no syntax. Syntax off. Okay, that's a little bit better. I don't want to be looking at all that auto forming. I just got to make sure that I type in correct JSON or I make this file go corrupt. That's one of the advantages of using VS Code. VS Code would enforce all the potential mistakes I'm making here. But you can see now the list of the different kinds of windows that I don't even have my customizations of Vim for like my highlighting color. This I have as green lines. So I'm going to have a little bit of customization to come as I drop my .vimrc in location and make all this stuff pretty the way I like. But you can see that any system you sit down on that has VI or Vim on it, you're pretty much, at home in. So there's the Powershell command, and Powershell is in fact the default. And this is the list of them and the commands they use. Now, I don't see anything about font size and stuff, so maybe I won't play around with font size yet until I have researched these things more. But there should be a global in here. Oh, interesting. Yeah, there it is. This is the global block right here. Default profile. I'll make my first change. Now, see how things can be commented. That means I can yank, and paste. And I'll forego teaching you Vim as I do it. Just know that everything I'm doing is what's coming in my videos, because everyone should be able to do this kind of Vim editing. I'm going to press X to do the smashing, just to get rid of that stuff line by line. Undo once. Hit I for insert. Now, I don't even need I for insert because I'm going to copy that GUID down here from... And I apologize. I know I'm doing that advanced stuff where you tune in for some beginner stuff and the person starts making assumptions and it all becomes so advanced. All I'm doing here is I am using the Vim Text Editor which is one of the aspirational things you'll get to when following along in my videos, to do some text file editing, dropping a global identifier in here. And they're going to be the same length, so I can just visually see 1, 2 is the overflow here, maybe to the cursor there, and so 1, 2 overflow. So I know I copied the right length GUID. Now it's just a question of, did I do the right oh, when I saved that, the font size changed automatically. It reapplied the settings. However, having reapplied the settings, I'm now going to quit out of Vim. I am going to copy this command into my Windows copy buffer. All these tricks about different copy buffers, because I might want that again. And I'm just going to close the heck out of my terminal all the way, right? But now when I double click this, look at that, Ubuntu, okay? So the keyboard shortcut for this is no longer, well, Control-Shift-T for terminal. That still works. I was going to go with the U for Ubuntu, but I think T for terminal is good. And let me impress upon you the awesomeness of what you just saw. You boot up your machine, you do Control-Alt-T, you got Linux terminal. And to do a couple of my other edits, I might not do the font size because it's just really one Google away from doing font size, right? I can see what that parameter is. But I want to make it full screen, and I do have that note here in my journal, so I might as well go for full screen and make the tab go away. Now, after all that talk about the goodness of a tabbed terminal, why in the world would I want to take away that tab? It's because I like to be in full focus mode when I start out in a Unix or Linux terminal until I want the tabs. And even then, I usually go to another terminal here and start using a tabbed interface. So that first one remains in my journal, the Linux version of what you're seeing here on the Windows side with Notepad. I do that on the Unix side or the Linux side with Vim. Oh, I copied that. So that's in my local buffer now, but I still have that in the command line buffer. Inside Vim, I'll have my other buffers, so many buffers to keep track of. Everything has its own little undo history. And just like I was in the global section here, see schema default, this is all global stuff. You can usually look at the outer, the name of the outer objects to understand that. But here it says you can add global application settings here. So on copy select it goes false, whatever, but I guess I'll start adding from the bottom here. There's that one, and don't forget your commas, because we're just making a JSON object. See, colon, you know, name, colon, value, name, colon, value, name, colon, value. I just added a new name, colon, value, launch mode maximized for full screen. And then the other one I kind of care about is always show tabs as false. And you'll see the difference to that the moment I run this. Now it's important to notice your trailing commas. This one here that I started inserting under with these two guys had a trailing comma. That means I should put a trailing comma because I'm not the last object in the list. And as I saved that, you saw it jumped back to the default font size, just because that's the way it works. But I quit out of it now. I close the terminal. I load it back up and see, oh, it is, the tab is there. So it went full screen. Always show tabs false. might have done something a little bit wrong there. But I'll investigate that, and I'll get back to the final tweaks, because I'm going to need to get the syntax for making a font size different. You'd think, why all this trouble for customizing terminal? Why not just allow VS Code to install and sort of go along with the party, the VS Code party, on how to tweak out your terminal? Well, because this is a good opportunity to start seeing Vim, to get some exposure to the one piece of that puzzle that Microsoft does not really want to take the masses down on their journey to obsolescence resistance that I'm advising you down. They have the exact same thoughts in mind: Linux, Python, Vim, and Git. Except for Vim. Swap out VS Code, load it with all kinds of goodies, and sort of lure you down that path. There's definitely a video game going on here. It's fun to play. It's a fair deal, but let me just show you, as my final parting shot, the way I really envision what's going on, because I have been fooled so many times in tech, and I won't get fooled again. So back in the olden days, in the early 80s, there used to be this arcade game where you were this little person, and then there were these ramps going up, and you were expected to jump from ramp to ramp, and you would jump over these barrels as they came down at you, and you were trying to rescue this princess from this gorilla guy over here. And I used to ride my bike 20 minutes to go to the local pizzeria to play this game where you would jump up. And so up here is a prize, the rescuing the princess. That is you being in the free and open source software world, where you really don't have to pay the green. And if you get here, you get that reward. It's wonderful gamification, and you win. You go on to the next level. You're not beholden to anybody. But if anywhere along the line these barrels hit you, they sometimes go on fire too. Whoops. Sometimes go on fire too. If it hit you, bam, it's the pitfall, it's the trap, and you go this other way of vendor shut-in, where you're going to be paying the green, where you're going to be using their tools pretty much for life. And so you are always engaged in this video game, and you've got to be watching out for these vendor pitfall traps here that are constantly being sent down at you by the gorilla. And the biggest one coming at you is VS Code. It will, in fact, change your life, maybe for the better, but it's going to collapse all the possibilities, because you're going to get addicted to it, and you're not going to be able to get off of it, and you're not going to be able to make your way to this old school world of free and open source software, where you can just use the text editor that's installed by default on every system you sit down at, because it's the part of the definition of what Unix is, which is what Linux and everything else is copying. So, long way of saying, I'm doing this so that you can have a little look at this old school world, and as unappealing as it might seem, you'll see that with just a few little light touches, which are not deep customizations, please keep in mind, I don't even use plugins with Vim. I'm not going to go hog wild installing this plugin or that. I am going to make the syntax a little bit prettier maybe than what we're looking at here. I turned it off because they chose such an obnoxious color for that red. But you can see the key value pairs here of the color syntax. So syntax highlighting is in Vim. if you want to use plugins, there's even command line completion or autocomplete or IntelliSense, as the Microsoft people would have you call it. But I can't stand looking at that at all that red, so I go to this, and I guess I'll wrap the video up there, because I have done a good number of things from out of this. I certainly set Ubuntu to the default. Something went wrong with the hiding the tab initially. I'll see if I can get that to work, and I'll set the font size so when we return, it'll be a much nicer environment. I might install my vimrc that I keep from GitHub. Oh, I was going to use this now to turn this into a repo. I guess I do that last thing. I did some tiny customizations, but now you see I'm in my user directory, and I know that in here, LSJOUR star, it'll list all my files. No, ls. I think I have a file in here called journal. I think I dropped it right in here. But we can always go back to my desktop, take a look at my journal file, properties, open file location. Oh yay, I put it in a directory called journal inside of documents, and documents is inside my personal directory. So here comes a GitHub repo, or a Git repo real easily. Not GitHub, but you've got that location. So this is super valuable, right? cd documents ls, cd journal ls. There's my journal.txt. Clear. Make the font really big so you can't miss this point. ls, right? There's only that one file in there. So what I do is I git init, okay? Git init turns this into a repo. See? Initialized empty Git repository in that location, okay? Linux, Python, Vim, and Git. Git's not so hard once you have it. And you'll have it automatically by having the Windows Subsystem for Linux. Don't even bother with Windows versions for Git. That's silly. Okay, so we initialized it as a Git repo. Now we git add the one file that's in there, J tab, command line completion is alive, right? And so we've added git journal to the repo. We can always type git status. Git status will tell us the status of things. There have been no commits yet. Wait, what? What's a commit? Well, that's like taking a snapshot. So first we said this will be a place where snapshots exist. In the snapshot location, there will be a file called journal.txt, which we will be snapshotting, so please track it. And so now we git commit. You can do all files, because there's only one file, so this is a real easy shorthand connotation, all files. And here's a place where parameters can combine. So I'm going to do M. M is for message. That's approximately the same as A hyphen M. So commit all files and use the message. But I'm in the muscle memory habit of doing AM, because I usually use this for undo for myself. So why bother with file names of which file you're committing? I'm committing all with a message, my first commit. And there it is. Please tell me who you are, okay? So it likes to know, oh, fatal, empty indent for local domains. Oh, yeah, you just got to tell it who you are. So because it's the first time I'm running Git, really, so this is part of that adventure. You're seeing me run Git the first time on this machine after an Ubuntu install. We just add our username and email. So name. Okay, clear. Now let's try that commit, right? Git commit, my first commit. And there it is, one file changed, 223 insertions, and now when I do things like move my to-do list up to the top, I could like change, you know, you've got a edit by edit history embedded in there. It's not all that easy to access. However, you can access it and see what your to-do list looked like on any day in the past. So I'm going to make a new to-do list, which will give you some idea of what's coming up in my videos. And people are waiting for the Linux graphical subsystem using an X server for Windows. So it's going to be a Windows X server program that I'll actually be using, one with this crazy name that I never remember, but it still makes perfect sense. And let's see. Yeah, I don't need to go looking for that. That time will come. So those are the things that are coming up in videos. Probably not today because I need to get to work and I can't produce too many of these during the work day. It's kind of like my lunch break. So I wrap up here. We're going to do that. We're going to do the live streaming. I'm going to put Anaconda prompts in the Microsoft terminal. Oh, and the font size, right? Hide tab on Windows terminal. By default, you can always get your tabs back, especially by adding a new tab. And then change font size in Windows terminal. I won't show you these two on the video because that's pretty much the exact same stuff as I've been showing you on this video. It's just a couple different name value pairs I'm sticking into a settings file. But this is a really interesting one, and the whole nature of my broadcasting might change once I have OBS live streaming on this machine. That's finishing out the today sort of stuff, really. Not sure if that'll be its own video. And then finally installing VS Code, because you don't walk away from power. You just don't embrace the power tools until you know some of the basics. And the basics can be power tools too. So I'm saying learn the best power tools first, which are best by virtue of having been around the longest, being the underpinnings of countless things in tech, the P in the pool of tech, as I say, and then finally also, and so importantly, being love-worthy stuff. You would choose, doing it over other things in life. And that's because of the neurotransmitters, the things that it's doing in your endocrine system, that are all those same things that vendors are doing in the gamification of tech to, lead you down the path to company dependency. Never stop paying. Right? So, I'm talking about an alternative path that uses all the same habit building tricks that leads you down the path of FOSS, love-worthy FOSS. And, it's to improve you as a person and make you happier. I'm peddling happiness. I'm not even selling anything. I'm promoting happiness. Because the feelings that go on in your head when you're using love-worthy tools and exercising mastery of the craft is all the good stuff. You're going to fill your body with, adrenaline, dopamine. There's a few others, but then eventually it settles down into, believe it or not, serotonin, because this stuff also gives you that warm and fuzzy feeling, the Python community. So after you've gone on the hunt and after you've made the kill, you come back and you feed the tribe. And so I'm really talking about, feeding human needs, using one of the hunting tools, the modern information age, that don't in turn enslave you. I hate using those words, it's not politically correct, but that don't in turn rule you. Bad tool selection today will rule your future. No, it's not bad. Tool selection today will rule your future. Don't make yourself dependent on the wrong tools. There we go. That's a good place to wrap up, right? Got my message across. Thanks for joining me. Hope to see you again soon. And don't forget to subscribe.